First of all, Dr. O'Reilly was very nice to you. You were allowed to keep your brains on normal speed. You can't keep your brains on normal speed with me. You're going to have to turn them up a little bit faster because I talk a little faster than he does. Sorry about that. Hopefully, all of these presentations are going to be up on the web within a couple weeks. They just have to be grabbed and edited together, so you'll be able to see things that you missed. So we'll see if we can get all that done, which would be great. My website is up there, davidgetoff.com. If you spell get off wrong because you can't quite believe that a name would be spelled get off, you won't find it. And I get people at least once a month, somebody says, your website's down. No. Well, I put in David Getoff. I got some other crazy thing that didn't. I assume you know how to spell David, so you probably don't know how to spell get and off. Oh, you mean it's really just get and off? Yeah, sorry. So really, really easy. I've also been the vice president for the past 18 years of the Price Pottage and Nutrition Foundation, and you can go there for information on my 10-week course in person. Next one starts in January. If you want the 10-week course online, go to my website. Actually, your best bet is to go to my website. There's a big green banner across it that says Nutrition Education Association. If you click on that, it brings you to the site where you can take a look at some of that stuff. So, before we start, what's the difference between the public and the top EMF research scientists? And it's actually very interesting. Public, we get all of our information from the media. We get it from, whatever it is that we're reading or listening to or watching. We possibly get it from our physicians. And therefore, we believe that the Wi-Fi, cell phones, cordless phones, maybe there's something wrong with some of them. Maybe or maybe not, but it can't be really too bad. Because if it was, then the federal government would either make it safer or prevent it from being sold. Haha, good luck. The difference between that and the scientists is I was just at the International EMF Scientist Conference, the first time we had one in the United States. There have been others in Germany. It was in Scotts Valley, California. And what was fascinating is that they had to find, they being the conference presenters that set the conference up, they had to find a location, which is called a venue, that was willing to turn off all the Wi-Fi transmitters in all the parts of their place that people were sleeping, and in the area of the building that we had our presentations in that the scientists were talking to, like here. Because otherwise a number of the scientists, who of course don't have any Wi-Fi, don't have any cell phones, don't have any of this, they know how bad it is, but they weren't willing to fly in for 3 days and be exposed to this stuff. So they had to find a place that everything was turned off. While we're all exposed to it all the time, thinking if it was that bad, somebody would tell us, and they wouldn't even come in and present their research unless they found a place. And every day, in the morning, and then again after lunch, a number of people were walking around the lecture hall with microwave meters, making certain that everybody's cell phones were off or on airplane mode, which they weren't, because people had turned them on to make some phone calls when they were in the lunchroom, which was an okay area. They came back in, they forgot about it. There was a woman 3 seats from me, and the guy's going over there, and his meter starts screaming. He says, ma'am, you've got something in your purse. She said, no, I don't, which is a little funny to say when somebody's meter is screaming when it's the purse. Okay. I mean, you'd think that she'd say, I don't think there's anything in there. So they open up the purse. Her cell phone is in there. I thought I left it in my room. Well, you didn't. Please turn it off or put it in airplane mode. Every day, every time we came back from a break, people walked around the room and checked that and made sure everything was off, because there were a lot of people there that were sensitive, plus that was an agreement with the research scientists coming in that there weren't going to be all those horrible microwaves in the room all the time. So that's a pretty big difference. The people doing the research and stay in areas where they're not using it won't even fly in for 3 days to present it to 350 health practitioners unless they agreed to make sure everything was gone, which was pretty interesting. So that's a pretty big difference. All right. These are just a few. There are lots and lots and lots up there. And like I said, we're going to have this stuff on, it'll be probably on my YouTube channel, and I'm not sure where Dr. O'Reilly will have his. And yes, absolutely, my name is David Getoff. If somebody calls me a doctor, I say, please don't degrade me and call me by the name of the 5 people that couldn't get you well, and now you're in my office. But the Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs by Penault and Exposed by Bill Cadwalader, fantastic, easy to read, understand books that give you a lot of information. There are a lot of others out there, but those are good ones. Anne Louise Gittleman put out Zapped a while ago. Okay, I like the other two better. And George Carlo did a fantastic job many years ago, and it's still phenomenal because the cell phone industry hired him and gave him a whole bunch of money to fly around the planet Earth, to interview the scientists, and to then come back and write a book that cell phones are safe and we should stop worrying. And as he started gathering information from the scientists and going, oh, this is really interesting, and gathering more information, then he sends his report back, and he talks about it in his book. He sends his report back to the industry that is funding him, and they realize that the research doesn't show that it's the safe that they thought it was. And they said, never mind, we'll write you your final check. Please come back, don't write the book, and everything is finished. And to his credit, as an honest, ethical person, he used his own funds to continue the research and write the book anyway. So, very, very good book, even though it's been around for quite a long time. So there are 4 different fields that we know about, and which one is the most harmful sometimes depends on which one you're the most exposed to. I mean, if I told you all, okay, mercury is harmful, lead is harmful, arsenic is harmful, cadmium is harmful, which one's the most harmful for you? Well, for most people, the most harmful for them happens to be mercury, because most people have it in their mouths coming out of their silver fillings 24 hours a day. But for somebody else, maybe they've never had a silver filling, and they live in an old house where there's paint peeling off the wall that still had lead in it. So who knows which one's the most harmful for you? You need to know what they all are, or you can't investigate any of them. So we'll begin with 60 cycles, or 60 hertz, and there's both an electric and electromagnetic, and that's the wiring that goes through all of our walls and our ceilings and our floors. It's the power lines that are outside that it's bringing the electricity into our house. And there's a standard statement that all the people in this field use: distance is your friend. And that's a very important statement, but it's much more important for 60 cycles, because that diminishes really quickly as you get further away from it. So for example, if you had a meter that was measuring electric 60 cycle fields, and you brought it right up to an extension cord or your computer or a wall outlet, you would be able to see what's going on there as long as there's current flowing. If there's no current flowing in that entire circuit, nothing is plugged in and being used, then the electric will be zero. But the the electric will still be there. I've flipped them. The electric will be there. The electromagnetic will be zero. But if you move that meter 3 feet away, it goes down to zero. I do this in my office all the time. I take the unit, I put it on electric only, and it's reading zero, and I move it closer and closer to an outlet or to a power strip or to my computer, and it zips up. All the LEDs go up to red, or depending on which meter it is, maybe it's giving me numbers. And then I bring it a few feet away, and I say, that's the reason that I'm sitting at the desk here, but the computer isn't next to me. Even though it would be easier to pop a CD in, it's not next to me. It's 3 feet away. That 3 feet makes a big difference for those fields, electric and electromagnetic. Big, big difference. You don't want lines going underneath your bed. You got a bed there and there's an extension cord under it, don't do it. Move it. Have it someplace else. So we'll go over some of that. But for that, distance really is your friend. Electromagnetic is when power goes back and forth, it gives a magnetic field. So if you had a lamp here and the lamp was turned off, there's an electric field in the cord, but there's no electromagnetic field until you turn the lamp on and it's going back and forth. So those are 2 different fields of the 4, 60 cycle, electric and electromagnetic, and those are the easier ones for you to reduce your exposure to, unless you have a gigantic high voltage power line pretty close to your house, which, because the voltage is so much higher than 120 volts or 240, because it's going to be stepped down with transformers before it gets to you, it can have an effect on you much further away, and that's the reason they found pockets of things like leukemia and lymphoma in areas of houses closer to the high voltage lines. They found out decades and decades ago, they verified that. But those are 2 of the 4 are electric and electromagnetic 60 cycles, and they're easier for you to be able to do something about. Most of the others are a little bit harder. They're generated by every wire in your wall and everything that's carrying power to all of your appliances. Again, distance is your friend. Inverse square law is a law of physics that says if you're twice as far away from an electric field, even though you're only twice as far, it drops by down to a quarter as much. And that's the distance is your friend being so important. So that's why for 20 years or more, I've never had my bed against a wall. You know, obviously I don't entertain in the bedroom. I guess I did before I was married, 40 years ago. But, somebody comes in, how come your bed is not against a wall? Well, because I don't want any part of me to be any closer to the 60 cycle fields going through all the wires in my wall that they need to be. There's no reason for my bed to be next to the wall. Same reason I wouldn't have an alarm clock right next to me. I want it to be, maybe I have to get out of bed and turn it off. Sorry, you can't hit the snooze switch every time. This is your life you're trying to make better. So everything you can put a little bit further away makes a big difference. Extension cords, not running under the bed, not running under where my feet are at my desk. Any of those things, again, distance is your friend. These are simple things that you can do. Well, but the outlet is over there. There isn't another outlet maybe 5 feet away that you can run over to get closer to? Anything you can do that's a help is a help. Just always remember, anything that's beneficial is beneficial. This is just one of many meters that are out there. This is one of the less expensive, decent ones for 60 cycles. It's made by EM Fields, and you can see it says electric on the left and magnetic on the right. You press the button, you can be telling it whether you want it to check for the electric field or the electromagnetic field. All right, 60 Hertz electric fields are in every building. It's the AC wiring in our walls and everywhere. Very, very simple. We all know that. If we didn't have it, we couldn't plug something in and operate all the things we want to operate. So we don't want that to go away. We just want to do anything we can to make it less dangerous for us. We need it or we can't operate any appliances. I understand that. They are also coming, as I said, from the outdoor power lines, and clusters of cancer were found in areas near the high voltage lines. So right now, because of my knowledge, I wouldn't buy another house and move without going there and doing a whole bunch of testing first. Because I might go later after I find that I've got cancer, somebody else gets cancer, 4 other people on the block get cancer, and oh my goodness, if I had turned a meter on and taken a look to see what's going on here, I would have said, heck, I'm not buying this house. So it's another thing you need to do. And, if you already have a house, which most people do, and you're not about to move, there are special people that you can call that can come in that have way more knowledge than I do in this, and all the equipment I have from the U.S. and Canada and Germany and much more. One of them is sitting here, Peter Sirk. They're called building biologists. They used to be called BOW biologists. They've changed the name of the organization. You want to make sure you get a certified building biologist, and they can check all the different things to see what's going on. So next is a strange thing called dirty electricity. What the heck is dirty electricity? We all know what a dirty car is, what a dirty room is, what a dirty bathroom is, what a dirty hand is, dirty fingernails. What the heck's dirty electricity? Well, what we need from the current in the wall, what we need from the voltage, we want that to be between 110 and 120, and what's going is 60 cycles or 60 hertz. That means if you had an oscilloscope, you would see a sine wave 60 times a second it would be passing you by. Okay, and we want that. We need it. We use it. It's required, otherwise we can't use anything that we plug into the wall. But it turns out that there's a whole bunch of other stuff that ends up on that line in addition to what we want. So we only need the 60 hertz. That's all we need. And anything else that might be there, we don't need. But it's there. Where does it come from? It comes from all sorts of different things. These other frequencies are harmful. Where are they coming from? Heaters, computers, dimmer switches, motors, fluorescent lights, power supplies. These days, everything's a power supply. When I was a kid, if something plugged into the wall, there was a cord that went to whatever it was you were using, and a plug at the end, and it plugged into the wall. Now, the vast majority of the stuff that we use, because it has to do with digital and computers, doesn't actually operate on 120 volts. It operates on 12 volts, 6 volts, 24 volts, 18 volts. So there's a little box instead that gets plugged into the wall and a cord coming out of that. That's a transformer. That's taking whatever it's getting from the wall and dropping it down to what your device needs. Your device might be an LED lamp. Your device might be that you're powering or recharging, something like your tablet or your cell phones. Those are power supplies. They put out a lot of dirty electricity. They also put out a much larger electromagnetic field. Transformers, these all produce other frequencies that come out.
So would that go for like a blender or a blow dryer?
Yes, every type of motor of any kind puts out that and larger amounts of EMFs. So yes, that would include, as you said, a blower, a hair dryer, electric shaver, a vacuum cleaner. But most of those are used for small amounts of time. So anything that's used for a small amount of time, I don't worry so much about. Unless somebody's massively sensitive, blow drying your hair is not going to increase your cancer risk. However, if you don't want to waste a lot of money during the winter, which we're now coming into, people laugh at us that we have winter, but we do. We have a winter. This is San Diego. We still have a winter. Sometimes it even gets down below freezing, below 32. And if you're saving money by not having the whole house heat on, and you instead have a small heater in your room a couple feet from you, that could be on for hours at a time, not just a couple minutes to blow your hair, and that's putting out a lot of a field. How much? I can't tell you. They're all different. You'd need a meter there to see how far away from you it would have to be. So these parabolic ones that they came out with years ago, where they go, they're terrific, because they're not a room heater, they're a thing heater. That's what they always talk about them. It's just heating up you. Yeah, and it's also electrically hurting you. So the question is how far away from you it has to be. I would rather have the one that heats the room up, because I can have it anywhere in the whole room further away from me, and it will bring the temperature of the room up. Also, for anybody that happens to, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, for anybody that happens to have a house that was built in a very small number of years during the 1970s, before they made it illegal, that has what's called ceiling heat, where you've got a rheostat in the wall, you turn that on, and they did everything wrong. They took the heating coils and they put them in the ceiling. Excuse me, heat rises. You don't want to put them in the ceiling, you want to put it down the floor. Number two, they wanted to make sure that they were safe and nobody could touch them, so they embedded them in concrete. So you're putting them in the wrong place, you're embedding them in concrete, and they're trying to heat the room. Well, they will heat the room, but they're also putting out a horrible electromagnetic field. I would go into people's houses with a little tick tracer, and I'd turn it on, and in the hall, it wouldn't be making any noise except telling me it was on. It would be going, deet, deet, deet. I walk into their room, and it goes, They go, what the heck is that? I go, well, I was pretty sure that was ceiling heat by the way your thermostat looked like. Now I know for sure. Well, yeah, but it's turned off. Yeah, well, that means that the current goes, the electricity goes from the transformer, from the rheostat, up into the ceiling, through the entire ceiling, putting out a field in the entire room, goes back to the rheostat, but it doesn't go through the rheostat because you have it turned off. So the field is still there. You want that field not to be there, so you're not massively increasing your risks of losing your memory earlier, of neurological diseases, of cancer. Find the circuit breakers they go to, and during most of San Diego's weather, when you don't need them, turn the breaker off. It's got its own circuit breaker. It's not going to turn anything else off. It uses so much power, each room has its own breaker. Turn those off, because those really are a harmful way of heating the room. So, dirty electricity. Dirty electricity are all of these other frequencies that are being generated onto our line. By accident, they're just happening from all those things and more. And you need a meter to measure the dirty electricity. So there are two companies out there that make them. Graham Stetzer is the first one that came out, was Stetzer Electric. They've been out for quite a while. I've been using them for a long time. The second one, much newer, is Greenwave. Greenwave is greenwave.com. And these two meters have a power cord that plugs into the wall, and they are designed to measure all of the frequencies other than the 60 cycles which we want to be there. That's supposed to be there. We're not trying to measure that. We know that's there. Unless the outlet is turned off because the circuit breaker's dead, we know that's there. What are all the other frequencies? And there's not a huge difference between them. The Stetzer, he wasn't trying to use a specific unit of measure, so he calls them Stetzer units. The other one is actually using a particular unit of measure. It doesn't matter. They both work. Both companies have little devices which are dirty electricity absorbers, so to speak, that you can plug into the wall, and they ground off and hold on to, with different capacitors, these other frequencies that we don't need, but they're hurting us. And they did really good research on this. Stetzer did some of the research in Kazakhstan, where the people that were sensitive in the houses, they had no idea. It was double blind. They had no idea whether they were having less of this dirty electricity for a month or more. Somebody would go to each house, throw a switch in a locked box from A to B. They had no idea whether they were turning it on or turning it off. And then at the end of the period of many months, they asked all the people in these houses, you were told just to be knowledgeable, then think about, do you feel better one month than another month? 100% correlation to the people feeling better during the months that the unit on the outside that reduced their dirty electricity was in fact reducing it and turned on. Stetzer later found that there are so many things inside our house that produce the dirty electricity. He scrapped the idea of putting something outside houses to reduce what's coming in, because too much of it is being produced in our house, and so they instead have all these little boxes that get plugged into outlets around the house. How many does it take? Couldn't tell you. Everybody's house is different. Some of my patients are really lucky. I loan them one of the 2 meters, and they go around their house, plug it in, wait about 10 seconds, take a look at the number. If the number is down below 40 or 50, they leave it alone. If it's above that, they put a little post-it note on there, write the number on there, and go to the next one. They check every single outlet in their house, and every once in a while somebody says, there wasn't any place that was over like 35 or 40. I go, great. You don't need to remediate, which is the word for reduce and work on the effect of your dirty electricity. It's low enough. Doesn't happen too often. My house, oh my God, I had places you plugged it in. Remember, I wanted below 40 or 50. Oh, it's 1200 over here. It's 800 over there. So I've got about 25 or 30 of the Stetzerizers all over my house. The new units from Greenwave are a little less expensive. They are just as good, and they have an outlet on the bottom. And everybody's biggest complaint was, well, but when I plug it into the outlet where I'm just going to leave it, I don't have that outlet anymore. It's now got this in it. So the Greenwave units have an outlet on the bottom, so you can still use the outlet and plug into that. But they're both good units, but that's for dirty electricity. So that's number 3. So we got electric and electric fields for 60 cycles, electromagnetic fields for 60 cycles. That's number 1 and 2. Number 3 is dirty electricity, and that comes into the room, but you can't really measure it in the room. You have to measure it connecting to the wires, and that's why you're plugging into an outlet. And those are the 2 meters. Meters are not expensive. They're about $100. Pretty much last forever. And the units, the Greenwave and the Stetzer units that help address this, I've had them in my house now for, I think, 8 or 9 years. They're still all working totally fine. The plastic's discolored a little bit. Hopefully the Greenwave plastic is maybe a slightly better quality plastic and won't discolor. I don't know. But they're both great. The Greenwave just has an additional outlet and is slightly less expensive. I think they had a better, larger manufacturing plant. So, he carried out the research studies. He found that it was harmful. Other people validated his research. And his website, StetzerElectric.com, has a whole bunch of the research available that you can actually go on his site and take a look at it. And the biggest problem in America is most of the research money is on the wrong side of all of our harmful things. And so we don't get to find out what's going on because they don't want us to know what's going on. The last thing they want us to do is come up in arms against this stuff because they're making lots and lots of money in lots of different areas. We're going to take a look at some of them right now. So look at how long it took for the public and the medical profession to just accept that smoking increases cancer rates, that asbestos rates asbestos greatly increased the rates of mesothelioma. Diethylstilbestrol caused thousands of deformed children and all sorts of problems. It was being prescribed by doctors. Vioxx and Baycol also killed large numbers of people before the FDA pulled them. And sometimes after all these, they actually found out that some of the FDA scientists had said, this shouldn't be allowed, that shouldn't be allowed, and they were overruled. Because the majority was receiving so much money from the various different companies. And for people that haven't read some of the articles on how, for example, scientists that work for the FDA and then they end up working for a pharmaceutical company at a much higher salary, they go back to the FDA again. Same thing with attorneys, back and forth, they're all in bed with one another. So anytime anybody ever says, no, we have a really good government in the United States, I don't know what government they're thinking of, but we have a really really good government here. We have all these federal agencies, EPA, FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and they're all protecting us. No, they don't. That's not what they're doing. They're protecting big business. There's actually a great book on EPA called Science for Sale, written by a top-level EPA scientist, David Lewis. Fantastic book. All right, so we also don't use something that somebody came up with that term a long time ago called the precautionary principle. That would mean, I would like to live in a country that does that. That would mean that we test things thoroughly before they are allowed to come out. Yeah, I don't know what country that would be, but it sure as heck is not the United States. So how can we reduce dirty electricity? We put in the green wave filters. We plug them in different outlets around your house. They have information on both their websites teaching you how to do it. It's not that hard to do, and I've had them in my house for about 10 years. Like I said, they last for a long time. I've got about 23 in my house. So there's a photograph, and that happens to be the ground fault circuit interrupter in my patient bathroom. And when I first plugged that in many, many years ago, and it read, and it's not stable because the dirty electricity is varying. It's coming in from all sorts of different places. It doesn't just say 1,044 and sit there. It might go 1,044, 1,025, 986. It's going back and forth. But that's the level it's up to. So then what I did is I plugged a Stetzer unit into the other half of the outlet, and it dropped down to 39. That's what these things do. And how much they're going to do that, I can't tell you. It depends on your house. How many you would need, I have no idea. But at the very least, pick the rooms that you're going to spend the most time in. And I can't tell you where that is. I can tell you in my house where it is. In my house, it's the bedroom, because I get 8.5 to 9 hours sleep. That's what the research shows is best, and I love it, so I get it. I'm self-employed. I decide when I start work. I can decide how much time I have for sleep. So bedroom is one place that's got to be a safe zone. And kitchen, maybe you eat in their kitchen and maybe you're there for an hour many days. It just depends on how much time. My way of blobbing out, so to speak, is after I've been working from maybe 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. People that talk about, they wish they had less than a 40-hour work week. I wish I had less than an 80-hour work week. But my way of blobbing out is I have some different TV shows I like to watch. So one of my places that has to be real low in all these bad things is the room I watch TV in. And therefore I had to get rid of my Roku box and a whole bunch of other different things because they were putting out massive amounts of problems. But wherever the places you spend a lot of time, that's where you should concentrate, because your home is supposed to be a safe zone. If every place you go you're assaulted by all this stuff, because that's what people see. They see it here and they see it there, and so they'll say, well, but David, I can't get away from this stuff. Every place I go, this stuff is everywhere. What am I supposed to do? I go, well, if every place you go, you're assaulted by all this stuff, don't you think you damn well better make your home as safe as you can possibly make it, so for at least the hours you're at home, your body isn't inflamed and isn't being made worse continually? Because that will greatly reduce, if your body has some regeneration time, the possibilities of when you may or may not getting something in the future. You want to do anything you can. So what benefits might you see or not? Because remember, prevention is the most important thing. Always remember, prevention is the most important thing. That's not something we're brought up with in the United States. Don't know about other countries. In the United States, I'm 67, and when I was a kid, you wanted to have the doctor in case you didn't feel good. You got sick, you want to go to the doctor. I want to not need these things. And the problem is that if you have a pain and you take an analgesic, which is the medical name for a painkiller, so whether it's ibuprofen, talk about Tylenol, aspirin, whatever, and in 45 minutes to an hour your pain goes away. That painkiller did something. That's easy. That's no problem. That's why it took us so long to ever be able to prove adequately enough that we could mandate that they put, warning labels on cigarettes, if anybody ever reads them. There's also a warning label. I implore you, when you get home, grab the unopened box, because it's not on the tube, the unopened box that you were going to open the next time you run out of toothpaste, and take a look at the box. Because if you've got one of the standard toothpaste that has fluoride in it, there's a warning label on there. This is warning. If you use up more than the amount used for brushing, if you swallow it, call poison control immediately. That's because the number of people that have been poisoned by the fluoride in their tooth, people don't know it. They don't know it's there. But we don't have these requirements, and so the only time something comes up is if the law is worrisome enough that the attorneys get involved and they make somebody put up a little bit of a warning somewhere and they hide it from you as much as they can and never talk about it on TV because they don't want you to know what's there. We're going to mention some of those a little bit later. So I've got lots of people who have noticed benefits in their sleep and in their kids' emotions and hyperactivities when they put in Stetzer or Greenway filters. Some when they told their kid, you are not allowed to sleep with the cell phone in your bed anymore, underneath your pillow. What are you really trying to hurt people that bad? The majority of kids that have their own cell phones, which is now the majority of kids, sleep with them under their pillow. Horrible. I want it turned off if it's even in that room, or a couple rooms away where if it rings, you've got to go over and find it. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I've seen people's rashes go away, neurological conditions. I've seen improvements in memory. But the majority of us are being harmed without a symptom you can feel. And people won't make changes if they don't accept that. It's really weird. People won't make changes if they don't accept that the damage that's being done to you, you don't feel. But it's there. And so that's the reason I spend $10,000, $15,000 a year going to all these different conferences. I want to hear the people, and now I'm one of the people that they fly in to give lectures. So those are nice because then I get the conference for free and my airfare for free. But I mean, I'm going to go anyway to the ones I like. But it's amazing. People don't know prevention. I had a woman in my office, and I said, so what does your husband think about all the changes that he's seen in you over the last 8 months that we've been working together? And she said, well, he said, it's very interesting. He said, I can see you're happier. Your sleep is better. You've got more energy. There's a whole bunch of things. And so, does he make a comment about me? She said, I asked him that the other day. I said, you want to go see Get Off? He said, no, I don't do prevention. Really? He said those words. She said, he said those words. He said, honey, I don't do prevention. If I have a problem, I'll go to the doctor. Of course, the doctor doesn't do prevention and doesn't try to get at things anyway. It's just trying to make the symptoms go away. So I said, I've got a request for you. But please, I don't want you to get into an argument with him. Please make certain you tell him this came from me. All right? When you go home, tell him you mentioned to me that my husband said he doesn't do prevention, and that what David Getoff said is actually that's not true. He probably doesn't realize he was lying, because remember, a lie is only a lie if you know it as you're saying it. If you think something and you're completely wrong, that's called ignorance. It's not called lying. So I said, tell him that he actually does prevention many times a year, and it's sad to me that his automobiles are more important than his body, because there's never any symptom that comes out in your car or truck that makes you get your oil changed. That's 100% prevention. And she said, I love that. So she did it. Next time she came in, I said, did you say it? She said, I said it. And I said, I can almost guess, but what he said, he looked at me and said, he's right. That is totally prevention. And I'm going to keep doing that and go to the doctor when I have a problem. Okay. You can't make people do things like that. People take vitamins, and I take 36 pills every morning. In my 10-week course, I have a picture of all the bottles. But none of those are being taken because if I don't take them for 2 weeks, I'm going to notice a difference. They're all being taken because they are going to massively reduce my risks of all sorts of different conditions I can get, and there's huge amounts of research on it. Prevention is harder to get people to do because they don't see a difference. And if God or Mother Nature or Father Time or whatever your belief system is, or Genie in a bottle, materialized in front of me and said, I will grant you one wish. And everybody, every time I say this to people, they joke and they go, so you're going to wish for 10 more wishes, right? I go, no. Now, if I'm being given one wish, my one wish would be that in all industrialized countries, I could just make it for America, that everything, and I would use the word thing because I don't care if it's a field, or if it's a smell, or if it's a chemical agent, wouldn't matter what it is. If any person was exposed to a thing that was harmful for them, and continued exposure on that massively increases their risk over a period of years for any kind of chronic, debilitating, or possibly deadly disease, within 3 seconds of exposure, they would become violently nauseous. If that happened, In a month or two, we would no longer have fluoride in toothpaste. We would no longer have fluoride in our drinking water. We would no longer have cell phones. We would no longer have cordless phones. We would no longer have genetically modified food. Many, many foods would just go away. I mean, the number of things that would vanish would be amazing. But nobody's given me that power, so you're going to have to learn about it yourself and decide what you want to avoid. So, I've also seen rashes go away and headaches go away when somebody finds out that when they started getting these rashes or headaches, it's because they just got the new smart meters. Now, they're not new anymore because California was the first place that released them. A lot of people have had them for a couple of years. But they are putting out signals, and they don't put them out 24 hours a day. They put them, well, they do, but it's not continuous. So when mine was put in, I grabbed one of my microwave meters and went out there and sat there for 20 minutes looking at it to see what was going on. And on mine, it sent a pulse out every 6 minutes. Somebody else was every 8 minutes. Somebody else was every 10 minutes. But they are doing these things, and they're bad for you. And since we won the lawsuit, I'm not an attorney, it wasn't me, but the lawsuits were won for both San Diego Graft and Extortion, SDG locally, and for the power company in LA, you can call up the power company and say, I want my smart meters removed, and I want the old analog meters put back, and they will charge you a one-time fee of about $75 to pull both meters off and put the old ones back on. And then you pay for about 3 years or so, depends on the municipality, you pay either $12 or $15 a month, because the people they wanted to fire, the meter readers, now still have to come back out to your house once a month to take a look. And then after a certain number of years, they're not allowed to charge that anymore. So after I finished doing my studies with my meters, I left them there so I could do some research on it. I had them all pulled. And now they're all the old analog meters. Also means that they can't charge you a larger amount of money during the times of the day or during the brownout times where you're using too much power when they ask you to conserve, and therefore they up the rates because they don't have a clue when I'm using power. All they know is when somebody comes out a month later, that's how much I used in the last 30 days. I don't want, they're not allowed to have all that information. I don't want it, plus I don't want the smart meter because it's not a smart meter, it's a dangerous meter. I've seen these same benefits in others when somebody eliminates the next category of frequencies, which we are now going to go over. And there are no tests to determine which of all these things might be harming you the most. However, if you've got bees, wasps, hornets, fire ants, and termites in your house, you going to pick one or two to get rid of? I'm going to get rid of as many harmful things as I can possibly get rid of. And so the more you know, yeah, the more depressing it is. I agree with that. And I have people that go, well, but my husband's an IT professional, and I'm never going to be able to get him to turn off the Wi-Fi. I go, hey, I can't make your spouse do the various different things. And of course, in some houses, it's the husband telling me, my wife is the IT professional, which is nice because there's no sex attached to what we can do for a living. But it's amazing the number of times that happens. I go, well, you know what you could do? You could go to Home Depot and buy a 24-hour timer, and you plug your router or modem, whatever your Wi-Fi is coming out of, into that, and you plug that into the wall, and you set it so at the time of day that you know everybody's asleep and nobody's going to be using any Wi-Fi, it automatically turns it off. And then turns it back on early in the morning. And without them even realizing it, and of course, if they're okay with it, then you can go ahead and talk about that and decide what the times are going to be, because as many hours as you can reduce your exposure, that much benefit is how much you're going to get. And the more you can get, the better off you are. So, last category is wireless technologies. Because obviously the dirty electricity is going on our wires. The 60 cycles electro and electromagnetic is traveling on our wires. Now I'm talking about wireless technology. And that's a broadcast or a transmit frequency. So that's something that was designed not to be carried on a wire. That's a device that is designed to be sending something out in the airwaves. And that's microwaves. This includes, but is not limited to, there are some other things. I try to grab all the main ones. Cell phones, smartphones, Wi-Fi routers and Wi-Fi modems, tablets, Fitbits, laptops, Apple Watches, Bluetooth devices, cordless telephones, and wireless baby monitors, wireless blood glucose monitors. So 2 months apart, I'm at 2 different conferences. The first conference was the Low Carb USA conference in San Diego, where one of the doctors was saying, oh, these wireless glucose monitors are so fantastic. I could finally attach one to my patients, and they can see on their smartphone the effects of what they shouldn't have just eaten, and it gives them a little bit of motivation to try and eat better because they see it immediately instead of just getting their blood glucose tested when they either go into the doctor's office or when they prick their finger. So he was talking about how great this was as a motivation to get people to eat better. And then a few months later, I'm up at the EMF conference in Scotts Valley, and one of the EMF experts is saying, geez, it wasn't bad enough that people are carrying them around. Now they're connected to us. They're called wireless glucose monitors. So one person loves it. One person is saying, oh my God, this is horrible. Same device. So microwaves, cell phone towers, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G is coming, or hybrid and electric cars. So two of the world experts, there are quite a few, I got to meet many of them all in person at the conference, two of them that I've known about for a long time and have communicated with are Magda Havas and Dr. Deborah Davis. And their websites will be up there and you'll be able to find lots of stuff on their websites. But at one point, I emailed Magda Havas and I said, I just have a question for you. Have you tested both electric cars and all of the new hybrids? She said, we tested them when they first came out. I guess that probably would have been the original Prius, because those were the first ones that came out. She said, and back then, they already had high enough electric fields that you couldn't pay me to own one. She said, I haven't tested them recently. That seems like that would be a lost cause, because they've got way more wireless stuff in them than they ever had at the beginning, so they're going to be way worse than they were, and because the public doesn't know how bad they are for you, there's no motivation for the manufacturers to try to put in any kind of shielding so that they're being less harmful. And that's what it would take. It would take enough people, if they think it's hurting their bottom line, and so when we needed one new car, my car is 1995, it has 311,000 miles on it, and I'm probably going to keep it forever. But, my wife's got a 2017 Toyota Corolla, and she said, am I getting a hybrid? I said, I'm not sure yet. I emailed Magda Havas, got the answer, I said, no. She said, okay, whatever. So all these different things, we're trying to be good to the planet. Don't know about that, but part of being good to the planet is not hurting ourselves. Yep.
About solar.
Solar varies. So I have 16 panels on my roof, SunPower Solar, and I've got U.S.-made panels, U.S.-made controllers, U.S.-made charge inverter, U.S.-made batteries, and a lot of people were talking about they put out mass amounts of dirty electricity, they put out all sorts of microwave stuff. Well, I have all my solar stuff hardwired. So every part of my solar system that would normally be done with a transmitter, I had installed with a direct wire instead of a transmitter. So I have tested my solar. My solar is totally fine. But apparently, from what I've been told by a lot of people that do this for a living, the building biologists, a lot of people's solars are not totally fine. All right, so there are a couple of documentary films, and there are more that are coming out next year because I met a couple of the people at the conference that are going to be doing them. And Generation Zapped, it's a really good term because that's what we are. We are Generation Zapped, and they're going to keep zapping us more and more. Great movie, but I would like them to come out with some more. Take Back Your Power is all about the smart meters and the research that we've got on the smart meters. So I recommend you watch both of them, but stay tuned for what's coming out because they're going to do some even better ones over the next 12 months. So this video is Take Back Your Power, and let's see, there we go.
While industry has failed to do any peer-reviewed studies on smart meters and health effects, a growing body of independent research is now starting to accumulate.
In our second set of tests, we're using the smart meter. Before the exposure, we see the same thing as we saw in the first samples. Normal cell walls, fairly separated and looking healthy. So after 2 minutes of exposure in front of the smart meter at about 1 foot away, we see a totally different story. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation in the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell. In the second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up, which makes it very difficult for the blood to deliver oxygen to the tissues as they would be their normal function. Every single one of these is a degradation. Every single one of these shows a trauma to the blood cells. And that came from something, and the only variable was the smart meter.
What's going on here? This is a wireless device which is unproven scientifically, which all the evidence so far proves is dangerous or questionable, which should therefore be studied intensely before it's released to the public. Clever people called the technology smart to make it seem intimidating so no one would question it. Some smart ad man came up with that and got paid $300,000 to call it a smart meter so you would feel less knowledgeable, which they know we feel, and then you wouldn't question the smart people putting it in your house. So I call them not smart meters, dangerous meters.
So how do we measure microwave frequencies and what levels are safe? There are lots of different microwave frequency meters out there. One of the less expensive one that's pretty decent is the Acousticom 2 from EMF Fields in the United Kingdom. A fantastic meter that's hasn't even been out a year yet is the Safe and Sound Pro, which has both the ability to see what's coming out this instant. They're actually, when it's operating normally, I think the camera, which is probably like 125th of a second, it got it in between what our eyes could see. Otherwise, you'd see 3 sets of readings, not just 2. But the top one, which is 17 microwatts per square meter, that's what it's currently seeing. Then there's another number in the middle that you can't see on this, which is the highest that it has seen since you've turned it on or since you hit its reset button. And then the bottom is an average. So those lights on the top, and you see the second one that says moderate is the one that's lit. Those are LEDs, and they go from green to yellow to orange to red where it says extreme. They chose, he said we could have picked anything, we had to pick something. They chose to use the building biologist's standard, and therefore you'll only get the green light lit if the current level is below 10. And that's super, super low. You will not see below 10 in a house that somebody hasn't come in, a professional hasn't come in to remediate. I have no wireless in my house. We'll go over that a little later, but there's no wireless in my house. But of course there are, cell phone antennas outside wherever they may be. And although the closest house to my house is 50 feet away in one direction and 150 feet in the other direction, which was a requirement I gave the realtor when he went looking, he said, "What the hell is this? You didn't tell me you have to look out in the country." I said, "No, it doesn't have to be in the country. I'm an El Cajon." He said, "What's this? It's got to be at least 50 to 100 feet away." I said, "That's so their wireless devices are going to have less effect on me because I'm not going to have any." And so my house, there's nothing in my house that ever brings it over 35. It usually sits 17, 18, 20 unless something is happening outside. But I will sometimes leave this sitting on my desk, and I'll turn on the audio, which is the switches on the right. I'll turn the speaker up to high when I'm looking in my closed-circuit TV, which is also not wireless. All my closed-circuit cameras around the house, 7 of them, they had to crawl into my attics and run corded cables to where they were going because I don't want wireless. So I'll have it sitting on my desk, and it starts screaming as a patient walks in the door. And somebody will say, and I'm just doing this just to start a conversation. So it starts screaming, and somebody says, "David, what's making so much noise on your desk?" I said, "Oh, that's your cell phone." No, David, on your desk, what's making so much noise? That's your cell phone. It was quiet until you opened the door. And then we have a discussion about all the microwaves that are coming off whatever they've got with them, which could be a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, a tablet, etc. Yes?
So your house is around 35, but
That's the maximum you'll find anywhere walking around my house on a good microwave meter is 35.
And would that be the yellow dot or the...
Because this is set up that the green dot only comes on at below 10 for the building biology standards, I will be the yellow dot. And if I walk around the house, it'll be 17, 18, 19, 20. One place it'll get up to 30. Maybe it'll hit 35 for a second because something from some exterior antenna came in. But otherwise, everything in the house is 35 and below. Yeah. And here's a more expensive one that I've got, made by Gigahertz Solutions, and that particular antenna is a directional antenna. So when I walked around my house with the center one, and nothing anywhere in the house was above 35, and most of the rooms were 17, 18, 20, when I walked next to the windows in the master bedroom, not next to the bed, I'm 3 feet away, next to the windows, my meter jumped up to between 250 and 300. And any place around the 4 windows, it stayed around 300. Then I had to go into my other room, get the gigahertz meter, put the directional antenna on there, go back in the room, and see, okay, 18, 25, 30, 18, 25, 38. It was all coming in the side window. So without the directionality, I wouldn't have known that, because it's easier for most people to use a non-directional meter. I mean, I want to know what I'm being bombarded with. At the beginning, I don't care where it's coming from. What am I being bombarded with? How bad is this house? That's the center meter. Very, very easy to use. Afterwards, if I'm going to do something to try and address it, which technically is called remediated, now I need to know where it's coming from. So I thought I was going to have to buy a whole bunch of the really expensive plastic film that goes on the windows that will bring it down, but no, I only have to do that on one window, and that's what I found after I used the directional one. So lots of different organizations have set up their own safety standards, and again, the strictest one are the building biologists. They want below 10 microwatts per square meter in a fully remediated house, but without the remediation, without them doing all those different things, you're not going to get that low unless you're out in the country somewhere and have no wireless. And I mean, I have some patients that are super, super sensitive, and I use them as my canaries to test things. So for example, if somebody says, this device, whatever it may be, and we're going to mention Shungite in a couple slides, that this device or this mineral in some way helps you to be less harmed, all my bullshit alarms go off, because almost all of the stuff that is claimed to do that is crap. It's nonsense. It doesn't do it at all. But I have canaries that I can use to test this with. So I just, on one of the things, which was Shungite, which is what I use the most of, I actually called up this one woman that lives out in Julian, got her husband on the phone, and I said, Doug, the next time you're in town, could you make a diversion over to my office? I want to give you something for you to bring up and have your wife put in whatever room she spends time in, so I can see whether she notices anything. Sure, no problem. So he comes over a couple weeks later. I give him a 70 millimeter sphere of Shungite and a little base for it. What am I supposed to tell her it does? I said, don't tell her it does anything. Just tell her Get Off is doing a little test, and he wants to see if she noticed anything from it. Okay, fine. What's it called? I'm not going to tell you. She might look it up. I just want you to see if she noticed anything. So I call her up a month later, and I said, so, Gene, when Doug's going to be back in town, you can go ahead and give him that mineral globe, but have you noticed anything? She said, that black, jet black thing that you gave him to give me? You can't have that back. I said, okay, I guess you noticed something. She said, yeah. She said, well, you know why we moved out to Julian, don't you? I said, yes. Because even though I was able over a couple of years to massively reduce your chemical sensitivity to almost all sorts of things, and you're a different person, you still are electrically sensitive, and you wanted to be at a place that there was much less power coming from all the microwaves. And so you found a place at the end of a dirt road, and she said, okay, so yes, you know the story. She said, well, people don't seem to have a very good memory. She said, all of my friends know why we moved out here. I mean, why are you moving? Well, why are you moving out to the middle of nowhere? They all know. We went over all this. And yet, they will walk into the house on their cell phone. They get out of their car, and they're walking right into the house. She said, and we tell people, one of us is almost always home. My husband's an engineer. He's probably at work, but I'm going to be here. I don't go out much. Come anytime you're in the area, come on in. Doors open. We're at the end of a dirt road. Just come on in. She said, and all of a sudden, I start getting a cell phone headache. And I mean like 25 times a year. And she said, I bellow out at the top of my lungs. She said, and I don't mind cursing when somebody's hurting me. I don't know who the F is coming into my house, but do you remember who you're visiting? Get the hell out of my house, turn your cell phone off, leave it in your car, and then come back and say hello. She said, that ever since I've had that stupid black sphere in the room I'm in, they're walking right into the room on their cell phone talking, and I didn't even get the headache feeling them come into the room. So that's how I test things to find out what things are working. I use my canaries because there isn't any way to check it with a meter, because the meter doesn't show anything different. It's not reducing the field. Yes?
How big is that sphere?
That particular one was 7 centimeters. They come in all sorts of different sizes. We'll go over that a little bit later. But that's how I test things that I don't believe work, by using super sensitive people that can see the differences that have no idea what was otherwise going on. So my home is at a maximum of 35. I was thinking of grabbing one of the meters and turning it on, but it's going to be way higher than it should be. I brought a Safe and Sound Pro with me. The International Building Biology Institute is here. Okay, buildingbiologyinstitute.org. Make sure you put institute in there. If you put in building biology, you're on a totally different website. You want buildingbiologyinstitute.org. Certified building biologists can come to your home, and I always just tell people, make certain, get a couple references from somebody that he or she has helped, because there's some frauds out there. Any specific suggestions, Peter, for... no? Okay, because we have one of the top building biologists here that I've known for years and years and years. What do we know about 5G? Not very much. And it's interesting because when people have asked some of the top people in the 5G field, the ones that are trying to put it out all over us, how much damage is it going to do? What's going to happen? They have publicly often said, I saw a video of one of them saying this, and I thought somebody was lying when somebody said they said that. Well, we don't know. We'll find out after it's been out for a while. That's the opposite of the precautionary principle. So the world experts I listened to for 3 days at the EMF conference, they said it's the next tobacco. But what I say is, because of my knowledge in all these different areas, I'm not sure. Is it the next tobacco? Or is it the next fluoride? Is it the next asbestos and next amalgam fillings? Maybe it's the next vaccines. Because all of these things are areas in which what the public is being told has nothing to do with where the facts lie. And although, everything that comes out to you is by people that are trying to make money, and they don't want us to know the different things, it gets suppressed. They're very powerful, and so we end up being misled. And, I always tell people, my question is, if you were wrong, would you want to know? And it's really interesting because a lot of people are so sure they're right, they don't even answer my question. I say, if you were wrong, would you want to know? And they say, but I'm not wrong. Everybody knows this. Well, everybody knew that something that was heavier than air couldn't ever fly. How the hell is something that weighs thousands of pounds going to fly? Well, now we fly around in them all the time. So there's lots of things that people absolutely knew, and a tiny percentage of people weren't totally sure. Maybe we can do something about that. Let's investigate and find out. And so I continue to say, if you were wrong, would you want to know? And I also say that if you want to investigate something which there's another side of, even if the other side is something that is the conspiracy theorists or the nuts or whatever, if you want to make sure that you don't start getting phone calls a long time from now that I've gotten often, having to do with somebody discovering something that you told them a long time ago. If you want to be in what I say the 1%, do you want to be in the 99%? It's probably more like 99.5. Or do you want to be in the half of 1% that knows things a decade plus earlier? You have to find experts, not your neighbor, unless your neighbor happens to be an expert in that field. You have to find experts on this other side of this issue and find at least 3 of them and listen to at least 3 of them. And see, after you've done that, do you go, he or she made some good points there. Nobody else has said any of those different things. You can't ask your friends. You can't ask the people that are already on the same side you're on. You can't ask the professors that are teaching that or the doctors that are teaching that. You have to find the experts, they do exist, on the other side and listen to them and see what you think. So I stuck in here just for a second because we're not going over that. This lecture is not going to go over vaccines, except go to my website, type the the word conversation into the search box, because there's only one place on my entire website that word exists. And it exists on the One Conversation Vaccine Science Forum videos, and it'll bring that up. They're also on my YouTube channel. Not going over it, not answering any questions on it. Watch those videos, and if you want somebody else to watch them, you don't tell them, I want you to watch this vaccine video. All right, I already told you you're a nut. I'm not going to, no. What you do is you have to put them, when you want somebody to investigate something who knows you're a nut. This could be a friend, this could be a relative, but on this subject, they know you're a nut. You must not talk about the issue. You must say, would you do me a personal favor? It's going to take you about 2.5 hours. It won't cost you a penny, and it won't hurt. Well, what is it? Would you just commit to doing something that's going to take it has to do with watching something. You're going to be watching a scientific forum, and it won't cost you anything. I'll send you the link. What's it out? What's it about? I'll discuss it with you after you've watched it. Fine. You send them the link, and all you're doing is extracting from them an agreement, whether it's this subject or some other subject, to watch this video from beginning to end, because you respect their opinion. You must put them up a little. You respect their opinion, and you really want to know what they think after they've watched it. And then they start to watch, and they go, crap, if I knew it was this, well, I promised I'd watch it. It's going to be a load of crap. I'll watch it. And of course, it's not a load of crap, and they hear a scientist, after a doctor, after a PhD, and that's the way you change minds. So that's the way to do it, and that's a great one. So, some of the effects that have been shown from radio wave frequencies, that particular chart is on Stetzer Electric's website. So you can go to their website, you can grab that chart. Two of the many world experts I mentioned earlier, Magda Havas and Dr. Deborah Davis, they both have websites, lots of articles. Magda's website is magdahavas.com. Dr. Davis' website is the Environmental Health Trust. So it's EH Trust, environmentalhealthtrust.org. Always remember your .coms and your .orgs, or you don't get where you're going. SLT.co. No, I didn't forget the M. It's SLT.co. That's Safe Living Technologies. That's the company that manufactures that meter that I said I use a lot, that you saw in the middle. And they've got a lot of good information on their website. And Less EMF is another website that has a lot of good stuff on it. For somebody that says, there's no research. There's no research. If there's research, we would know about it. Powerwatch.org.uk. Hundreds of studies, all divided by the topic, so you can decide what you want to look for studies on. So you can send people there. And the Bioinitiative report was very important, bioinitiative.org. So I want a healthy memory, a healthy neurological system, and a healthy immune system till I die. Do you? That just depends. Or if you do, how much are you willing to do to make it so? And that's totally up to you. So I went over moving your bed, keeping your wires and electric devices further away from where you spend time, using a Stetzer or green wave filters around the house. How about this last category of microwave frequencies? That's a little bit harder. So if you're truly interested in lowering your risk for everything in the above heading, what steps can you take besides moving to the middle of nowhere and living in a mud hut? That would be interesting, except I don't like mosquitoes, so I'm going to make sure it's a mosquito-free middle of nowhere, although mosquitoes are, good food for birds. So I have a lot of knowledge. I've listened to lots of experts. I've read, I guess it can't ever be too many published research studies, and because of that, my home and my office are a safe zone. There's no wireless. I own a cell phone. Almost nobody has ever seen me wearing it because it stays turned off off, fully off, not in safe mode or anything else, in my glove compartment, so that if somebody jumped over a divider, hit my car, and I rolled down the hill, if it wasn't destroyed, I'd be able to call somebody, they could get a GPS on me and see where I am and hopefully come save my life. But otherwise, I almost never ever use a cell phone. And for the last year or more, I've been telling people, put the landline back in again, because so many people have taken them out, because why pay for another phone? Put the landline back in again, and the second you walk in your house, forward your cell phone to the landline and put the cell phone someplace where it's not going to be around where you are. And in a year worth of saying that over and over and over and over again, the first time I ever heard those words come out of somebody else's mouth was two of the scientists at the EMF conference that said, yeah, we tell, one of them was a doctor who also treats people. She says, yeah, we tell people as soon as you come home, forward your cell phone to your landline. And I went, wow. I mean, I couldn't be the only one that says it. All right, so if you don't want my level of safety because it's too many things for you to do, what are some of the simplest changes you can make? Okay, start by installing a corded landline if you don't currently have one. A corded landline, not a cordless landline. I mean, once it gets installed, it's whatever you plug into it. But if there's a cordless landline anywhere in your house, and I have people that go, yeah, we have one of those cordless phones, but we never use it. It's all the way in the back room. Okay, so you're never using something that's irradiating you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's really stupid. Give any cordless phones away to somebody you don't like. As soon as you get home, forward your cell phone to your landline and get the cell off of your body. Leave it in the kitchen or wherever you want. Never sleep with a cell phone anywhere in the bedroom unless it's turned off, charging 4 or 5 feet away from you. Turned off. It's just charging. Don't sit near an operating microwave. If you had a microwave meter, you could see the microwave radiation coming out of your microwave. Yes, it meets the federal standards. That's not what you want. You want safety. Every cell phone has a warning. All of the manufacturers, because of their attorneys, have made them put warnings in. You have to know where to look for it because, they no longer give you a big book. You get a little tiny quick start guide. Everything else is inside the phone. It's a computer. It's not a phone. It's a computer. So you have to know where to go in there to find all the safety warnings. And if you know where to go, they all have a warning. Some say never carry the phone closer than a ½ inch to your body. Some say 3/8 of an inch. Some say 3/4 of an inch. Some say 1 inch. Okay, so that means as you're walking down the street, instead of having it in your pocket, you've bought an anti-grav device from Star Trek, and it's sort of sitting next to you. You're walking it like you're walking your dog. Everybody has it right next to their body. They're in it's in their pocket. It's in their bra. All these various different things, and there's really good research on what it destroys sperm cells. A lot of our huge problem with infertility has now been shown to be due to the cell phones, but you're not going to hear that. Some of the people believe, I don't know if they're going to be able to get somebody to do a study on it, that our increases in ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, etc., is because that's where people keep our cell phones. Why else are they going up? We don't know. That's just association, but it's certainly possible. So yeah, get it out of your bra, get it out of your pocket. At the very least, get an OtterBox or some other brand that is heavy enough and large enough that goes on your belt that at least is keeping it 3/4 of an inch away from you so it's not right on top of you. Women have the benefit of having a purse. So, if you got it in a purse, automatically it's not right on top of you. There are a lot of different companies that make cell phone cases. One of the ones I know the best is called DefenderShield.com. But of course, if you put something in one of these cases and you put it in a case that blocks on all sides, well, just turn your cell phone off. You just blocked it anyway. You're not going to get a call. If you're going to have it in there, you might as well just turn it off. Some of them block only one side so that the part that's going toward you isn't radiating you as much, but it'll still ring. So again, look into the different things, and anything you can do that's a benefit is a benefit. You never know what little benefit that you make here or there might mean the reason that you keep your memory 5 years longer than your friends. So, like I said, look into a case by Defender Shield. Okay, now the hard part. So, do you leave your car engine running all day long so when you get into it, you don't even have to start it up? No. Okay, right? Do you leave your oven on so it's already preheated, even though you haven't used it in 2 days, but when something says preheat to 375, well, it's already at 350. We're just going to have to turn it off up 25 degrees. No, you're not going to do that. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Do you leave every house light on while you're sleeping, so in case you want to go into one of the rooms, you don't have to throw the switch? No. So these are all things that will cost you money, and you don't do them even though they won't harm you. I guess if your car was in an attached garage, the carbon monoxide might get into the house and harm you. Otherwise, none of those will harm you. They will just cost you money. So why in the hell are we inflaming your bodies, your brains, and your cells all night long while everybody's asleep with the Wi-Fi being on and cordless phones being plugged in when nobody's using those, and they're actually hurting you? Because nobody told you. I'm telling you. So, like I said earlier, buy one of the 24-hour on-off timers at Amazon or Home Depot or whatever, and set it up so it automatically turns things off. Because otherwise, you're going to be in bed, you're half asleep. Oh, I forgot to turn the Wi-Fi off. Honey, do you want to get up? No, I don't either. Okay, we'll try to remember tomorrow. No, set it so it does it by itself. Much, 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 much better. These are just 2 of many meters that are available on Amazon that you can get. I don't care which one it is. You just want a 24-hour meter that you can set when it turns the receptacle on of anything plugged into it and when it turns it off. And yes, unless they change the laws, which we voted for, we do have daylight savings time, and so maybe once a year you might have to change that, forward or back an hour. That's okay. That's pretty easy to do. So more simple, helpful hints. How many bars do you see when you're talking on the phone? This is a very, very simple one that nobody's being told about. Cell phone's a computer. It knows how far away, not in miles, it knows how strong the signal is that it's receiving. And if, because the signal is weak, because of how far away the closest cell tower is, it feels that it has a weaker signal, it automatically doubles or triples its output strength. It's hurting you massively more. Well, it doesn't know it's doing that. It's just trying to make sure that it gets to the cell tower. So if you want your phone, when you're using it, to be less harmful, walk around to some place that all the bars are illuminated before you make a phone call. That way it drops down to its lowest output level to conserve your battery. That's the only reason they're doing it. They would give a heck otherwise, but it makes the battery life longer if it doesn't boost up the signal. So you always want to use it with all the bars illuminated. That's a problem you can have with some of these phone containers. People will buy one of the phone containers and they don't realize if they're not using it correctly, it's decreasing the phone's ability to transmit and receive the signal, so the phone boosts its strength up 300%, and maybe what's coming out is worse than what it would have come out if you didn't have the signal being compressed in a cage. So it just depends on what's going on, but you definitely want all the bars lit. Wired headsets, there's a big discrepancy between the different types of headsets. And I know people that say they have to be the tubes, the air tubes. I know people that say that that has been tested and that it doesn't make any difference. So I'm not totally convinced. If I'm someplace, like in a hotel that I'm in many times a year, my cell phone is 5 or 6 feet away from me, and I'm either on a 6-foot, they don't make 6-foot air tubes, I'm either on a 6-foot corded headset, or I'm on a Bluetooth. Well, David, why would you be on a Bluetooth? Your phone has enough power to get to a cell phone tower that could be a mile away, could be 2 miles away. Your Bluetooth can't even get 50 feet. It's a much lower signal. So if you can take your phone that's got the dangerous signal and have it 4 feet away, propped against my window in my hotel room, and I'm on a Bluetooth, that's much better than having the phone next to me. I wish we had corded landlines in all the hotels that you could all get outside lines on and read it, but of course now everybody's on cell phones, so most of the hotel phones, although they are corded and they are landlines, are just for hotel communication if somebody calls in. It's not easy to get an outside line to make a long distance call, but I rarely ever use a cell phone. Bluetooth, that's the only benefit I can see to Bluetooth. There's a phone being developed. The company was at the EMF conference, and I'm going to keep in touch with him. He said, I think he said call me in like March or April. I don't even have their brand, but I have their card. They're developing a flip phone with the lowest possible output signal of anything that's ever been. They have found a way, I don't know how because I thought it was illegal, they have found a way to clone your number. So if this comes out, you can have it on the same phone number as your smartphone. So you can leave your smartphone turned off. Now I don't care if it's in your pocket. Turned off, and you've got the other one turned on, and only if you need something that you can't do on a flip phone would you turn on the one that's hurting you. So I'm going to keep in touch with them and see. I hope this does actually come out. That would be great. So it's time for a rather hard-to-believe mineral called Shungite, which is the only thing that I've found that's both inexpensive and actually does reduce the harm. Reduces. You want to eliminate it, you turn it off. You block it totally. Reduces. And so this is a bunch of pyramids made out of Shungite. There's a plate from Shungite. There are a bunch of spheres made out of Shungite. These are some chips that go on cell phones and tablets and some pendants. This is from an area in Russia called Karelia, where apparently some meteor, I don't know, thousands of years ago, because you can't find Shungite around the planet. It's only in this mine in Karelia in Russia. Came in and hit. Russians have known about this for many decades. Their government has used it for various different things. There's a lot of stuff written on it in Russian. And a number of years ago, a woman named Regina Martino, did I put her book up here? Yes. A woman named Regina Martino wrote a book on it in French. And then when she translated into English, I found out about it, bought the book, read through the book 3 or 4 times, and I said, I don't believe it. I'm sorry. My engineer brain says this is nonsense. So I started testing it with my canaries and found out that it was legitimate. There's only one thing she says in that book that I found to be wrong, and that is she says that if you take one of the tiles, that tile in the middle is 4 inches by 4 inches by about a half an inch thick. She said if you take one of the tiles and put a transmitter on top of it, so like you put your modem on it, you put your Wi-Fi router on it, you put your cordless base station phone on it, no, throw that the hell out, that it changes the harmful signal into a beneficial signal. No, it doesn't do that. That FF does not do that. But it somehow or other reduces the amount of harm without reducing the signal. How? Nobody knows. And that's the problem with what we call energy medicine, is a lot of these things can only be tested by doing physical research studies on plants, animals, and people, because we have no meters to test them. And if I didn't have canaries to do these tests on, I would think Shungite is a total piece of garbage. And I have tested 7, 8, 9, 10 other different pendants and stickers and all sorts of things, and none of them do very much of anything. So these are my babies. And whatever time we have, I will answer questions. Yes?
Did you test it with just the pendant too?
Yes, I teach muscle testing. Most of the people that do muscle testing should be shot and put out of their misery because they don't know what they're doing. They wouldn't pass any of my double-blind muscle testing tests. But if you do it correctly, it's a phenomenal way of bringing in information. You have to do the mechanics correct. You're not trying to prove something. You're not trying to sell them this product or sell them that product. You're just looking for information. And when I do muscle testing on people, I find that if I put a cell phone in their hand and I then have them call my landline. So now it's really dangerous. They're talking on their phone to my landline. They are all weakened by that signal. And when I put a piece of Shungite in their hand, that weakening effect goes away. However, I'm not stupid enough to say, therefore it's not hurting you anymore. I know it's still hurting you. The signal is still there. It's still hurting you. Somehow or other, it reduces the harm, and I've seen that in a lot of very, very sensitive people. So how? I don't know. Yes?
Does it have to be polished a certain way? Because
no, it doesn't matter how it's polished. Makes no difference. However, there is fake Shungite on the market.
Okay, because I have 2 big honking Shungite blocks, and I've made Shungite water, and nothing, no relief. from that.
Again, I don't know the quality of the Shungite you've got. I don't know whether you're so sensitive that the reduction that it gives you isn't enough for you to feel. I can't tell you what it is. All I know is I have used the good Shungite and lots of people in blind tests, and there's no question that it really works, but nothing is the same as not using something or turning it off. If it was, then I would just put everything back on again. I have Shungite all over my house. No, I still have Shungite in the house. That's to protect me from all the crap that's coming in, through the walls, through the windows, and everything else.
So is there a specific company whose products you trust for the Shungite?
I buy my Shungite from one particular mine company in Karelia. I don't even remember their name, but I remember reading that Shungite is one of the very few minerals that is amazing in its ability to conduct electricity. And I worked for 4 years as an electrical engineer and 10 years as an electrical contractor before I switched 30 years ago into this field. So when I heard that, I went, I grabbed one of my Fluke digital meters, put it on a resistance scale, went into my library, because I like crystals, and I go to Quartzsite and buy all sorts of crystals, and I've got crystals. So I grab it, and I start testing all the crystals that I've got in the library. And with the exception of like zinc-tite and a couple of things that are metal conductors, nothing conducting electricity. I've got a globe about the size of a bowling ball of Shungite. It's like $900 in my office, just to show people. And I took these two probes that if I put them just a quarter of an inch apart on any other mineral in my house, there was no conductivity. I put them 10 inches apart on either sides, conducts immediately. So that's something, and I've tested some Shungite people have been brought in to me, which didn't conduct the electricity, so it wasn't Shungite. But as far as the qualities of different Shungite, I wouldn't know how to test it. All I know is I've seen enough differences. I just recently had a woman whose son came home from school and said, "Mom, I don't know what's going on. I can't concentrate in school anymore." And she called the school up and said, "What is different this week than the rest of the year?" And the person she got on the phone said, "I don't know. The only difference I know of is they just finally connected the Wi-Fi that they've been working on for a while." So she calls all of her friends' parents up and asks if any of them have noticed issues. And it depends on your sensitivity. And so a couple of them said, "Yeah, my son or my daughter said something weird in school," and most of them didn't notice anything. And a lot of people don't notice this stuff. It's still hurting you. It's like somebody will say, "Well, I'm not allergic to mercury." No. It has nothing to do with an allergy. You're not allergic to cobra venom either. That's not an allergy. It's a toxic substance. So they went to the school, tried to get them to, you're never going to get the school to stop that. There are some schools that have reversed it. So she took the 5 or 6 centimeter globe that she had bought from me a couple of years ago at a lecture I gave in New Jersey. And she said, "Put this in your backpack. You leave your backpack right next to your desk?" He said, "Yeah, right next to my desk. Put it in your backpack, see if you notice any difference." "What is that?" She said, "Just put it in your backpack, see if you notice any difference." He comes home and he said, "Yeah, the problem, I don't feel bad with that there." So again, somebody else still will, depends on their sensitivity. But however much it's helping, I'll take any help I can get. Yeah.
I went to a lecture of yours, it was like maybe a year and a half ago, and I bought one of your big spheres.
Okay.
Put it, stationed it between our bedroom and our son's bedroom. And it was amazing. He said, "You know what? I know that thing works that you put, because the ringing in my ears is much less." Now, it didn't totally take it away.
Right.
But we've done some other things, some mitigators, which has removed his ringing in his ears, the hissing sound, that fine hissing sound. So, yeah, there are things out there.
There are things that work, and a lot that doesn't work.
Yeah, a lot of things are different. You just have to be willing to tweak it and try it and see what
And I've had a number of parents that have put a adequate sized sphere, because the larger it is, the larger its, extended field, on a dresser in their bedroom, because that wall is a common wall to the kids' bedroom. And this one woman did this. She called me up the next day. She said, "This is so weird. All I did was put that silly black globe up there." She said, "And I know my kids." She said, "They've been my kids since they were born." She said, "They were so much less hyper when they woke up in the morning, starting the day that I put that in there." So again, some others that are not sensitive, that it wasn't doing anything noticeable, wouldn't see a difference. Yep.
How did you opt out when you have solar? We got solar and they said we couldn't opt out of the smart meter.
They're wrong. You got somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
we have solar and things as well.
Oh yeah. No, the opt-out is for everybody. Yes.
Thank you.
There's also that Blue Shield device, which is a means of disarming EMF somewhat? Are you familiar with it at all?
There are a whole bunch. So far, every one that I've tested either doesn't work or doesn't work as well as Shungite. There's a company that's working on 2 devices right now. One's called the Biophotonic, I think, Shield, and the other one has a different name, and they're going to be coming out over the next couple of months, but of course they said that a year and a half ago. And they're supposed to be putting out some kind of balancing frequency that is going to reduce the harm. Again, they tell me these things. I know the person developing it. I know he's honest. All my bullshit alarms were still going off, and I will buy one as soon as it comes on and out and does some testing. But all the ones I've taken a look at, none of them have been working as well as the Shungite, and it's less expensive than some of the others, and it doesn't have to be recharged, and it doesn't go bad. If you're using it inside water, you have to redo it, but if you're just using it for this, it doesn't matter. The book is terrific. Yeah.
So I had my house partially remediated. I rent a house, and so Orm came from LA.
Or Miller, yep.
And did a lot of that. And I had a magnetic field in my ceiling because of bad wiring and an outlet.
Yep.
As soon as they switched it, the magnetic field disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
In my bedroom, we installed a kill switch in the bathroom, which basically cuts off the electricity.
Cuts off the electricity going, which gets done if somebody's getting a house built or remodeled, then you want to have a good building biologist come in and explain what needs to be done, especially if it's being built from scratch, because they've done this in Germany for years, where it's set up so you have a remote kill switch, it turns off the circuits that are supplying any power to any of the wiring going through the walls of the bedrooms, but they have to know that because normally the wires going through the walls of the bedrooms don't only supply the bedroom. They could be on their way to lots of other different places. They have to wire your house in such a way that the only wires in the bedroom walls and ceiling and floor supply the bedroom. So you can turn just that off and not be cutting power somewhere else. There's a bunch of things that have to be done.
Yeah, and so my question to you is, because we discovered some dirty electricity coming out of the outlet behind my bed, I'm not at liberty to really move the bed that much. Would one of those other meters...
If it's dirty electricity, then you want a dirty electricity meter, either of the two, and you want to see how many of the green wave or Stetzers you have to put in to drop it down if it's dirty electricity.
Because if I do the kill switch, my daughter is staying with me, so it shuts off the whole side of the house.
Right, I understand. Yeah, unless the house gets wired for that, that's the problem.
All right, so
Yeah. Grounding mats have been used in Germany for a long time. Here, Barefoot made them more public maybe 25 years ago. Grounding mats usually help, but they've also hurt a bunch of people. Because if the ground isn't as good as it should be, people think that other little, third plug on the bottom, that's automatically doing what it's supposed to. No. I've got a $300-400 meter called the Inspector, which gets plugged in there, and it sends a 15 amp pulse down the ground wire all the way back to the circuit breaker panel to make sure that everything is connected all the way and it's really a good ground. There are a lot of those grounds that are awful. And then you plug in a grounding mat and you're actually bringing more crap into you. So grounding mats can be good, and some people really get benefits from them. There are a couple of good research studies, but not always.
You mentioned lessemf.com.
That's one of the decent websites with things you can get on it. Yeah.
They sell hats and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be protecting. So that stuff's okay?
Yep. Yeah, they have stuff that's good, is legitimate. I had a patient in my office last night. He brought in a bunch of these different things. He said, I bought these at lessemf.com. And I'm sure you're going to tell me I just spent a lot of money on crap and this is all useless. I said, no, I'm not going to tell you that. A lot of these things work very well. So we used his cell phone, turned on and, calling my number with my microwave meter to test the various things that he had, just to see that they were in fact blocking, and they all were. They still have to be used correctly. Let's say you've got a house, and then we probably have to leave because they've got to close up, but let's say you've got a house where somebody comes in one of the rooms, there's a very high microwave level, and you find that the microwaves you think are coming through that wall, but you don't have somebody with the right experience check it. They're actually coming through the other wall, but you don't know that. And and you put a whole bunch of special types of paint on the wall to block it, but they're really coming through one of the other walls. You didn't know it. You were wrong. Now all the stuff coming in is bouncing off that and making it even worse in your room than it was before. So you really need to get an expert involved before you're going to do certain things and waste a whole bunch of money. This presentation will end up on my website within the next few weeks after I get it edited. There's a lot more stuff on my website, but I know they have to get us out of here because they have things to do. One question.
You know, when someone comes to you that suspects sensitivity, how do you determine that? What are the criteria that let you know?
A lot of people think they're electrohypersensitive, and they're not. Most people that think it are right, and the doctors are wrong, and they simply won't believe them, which really pisses me off. I don't have any need to test somebody to prove they're wrong. If somebody tells me when I go out to the country I feel fantastic, and when a bunch of people are around me with cell phones I get headaches, and then one of the experts was going over just recently that if there's lots of garbage going around, it's so triggered you that another cell phone doesn't make you feel worse, and so the person says, oh, you don't have a problem, because their cell phone didn't bother you. But if you're in a clear place, one cell phone your body notices, so it's not an easy answer. Thank you very much.